There we go. Good afternoon. We have the right mic. Well, welcome to the Powering the IoT Revolution and Making Sense of Data. Hopefully that's where you mean to be. This is going to be a really exciting collection of speakers and discussions about some of the most pressing issues that are shaping our cities today. Certainly, the advent of IoT, the dispersion of hundreds of, even millions now of sensors across our cities offers amazing opportunities to collect data to help improve and optimize city services, to better engage with our citizens and understand what they need. Right? All of that data can provide a deeper sense of where the city is today and how to help it get to a more livable place tomorrow. But with all of that opportunity also comes challenges. Right? IoT solutions are new, so the maturity of those systems is still under development, introducing risk in their implementation. The performance metrics are undefined, so what are we meant to get out of the implementation and integration of an IoT solution across a city? And then finally, what outcomes are we looking to achieve? Technology for technology's sake is not going to change the level of livability in our cities. So what problems are we targeting with these solutions? So these are the type of questions and more that we're going to be discussing with the amazing group of experts that we have with us today. We'll start with 2 mini keynote addresses and then have a short networking break and also move on to a really interesting panel. The 2 keynotes will address things like how to do citizen-led data governance and actually engage the community in these deep questions about the value of data, the ownership of data, and the use of it, followed by a presentation speaking directly to how IoT can be applied in the pursuit of a more livable city. What are the proven solutions that cities should think about adopting? One quick bit of housekeeping. Hopefully all of you are using the Ask and Vote app on the phone. That's your best way to get a question to me for one of the speakers so that we can get it to them. You can vote on other questions that you see to change the priority of the discussion. And there's 2 quick questions in there that we would love for you to answer right now. A little bit of basic background to help us understand the audience. So if you could take a quick minute while we move on to our first speaker and answer those 2 quick little questions about your type of organization and your level of expertise around the IoT topic, we would really love to start with that baseline information to help us shape the session. If anybody has trouble finding the app or accessing any of the questions, just let us know and we can help you find it. So finally, I'm quite excited to introduce you all to Dr. Mara Balestrini. She comes to us. She's the CEO of Ideas for Change and the co-founder of solacecoop.org, which is a framework for a citizen-led approach to the collaborative managing and governance of health data. Her work on how new technology and data can foster citizen-led innovation is taking place in cities around the world. To share with us the method that she uses and the experiences she's had in various cities, I give you Dr. Balestrini.
Thank you. Hi. It is such a big pleasure to be here, so I'm very thankful to Smart City Expo for having me here again. A key concern in the IoT revolution is how citizens can really harness the potential of these technologies to affect real change in the city. We have seen a lot of examples we often see examples of IoT being deployed by technology companies and city councils, but we see very little examples of citizens who have been empowered directly by these tools. Today I want to share with you a story from the Making Sense project, which is a project that I led from Fab Lab Barcelona and with a stellar team of partners. I was funded by the European Commission. The goal of this project was to investigate how IoT, open source technologies, data, and digital manufacturing could really empower citizens to change their cities. We did a number of experiences, but today I want to share with you an experience from Barcelona because this is the amazing city where you happen to be at the moment. This is the Plaza del Sol. This is a square in the neighborhood of Gracia in the city center of Barcelona. Has any of you ever been there? Okay, those who have been to the square may know that there's a little challenge about this area of the city, which is the fact that it gets very noisy at night. The reason why it gets noisy is because, as you can see in the picture, a lot of people congregate at night there to chat, to have fun, and to drink. And this produces a problem of noise pollution. For many years, the citizens living around the square had been complaining about the noise situation there, but there was little action taken by the city council. We used our approaches to citizen engagement with IoT to co-create a citizen science pilot to harness the potential of the Internet of Things to really help this community to change their situation. We used our framework to galvanize a community around the issue of noise pollution. What brings together a community? A matter of concern, an issue that citizens are preoccupied about, an issue that is really affecting them in their day-to-day life. But also, a lot of people who are not directly affected by the issue want to contribute to positive change. Those are experts, people who are retired, people who like to do good. When bringing together the community, we looked especially at how different types of citizens were going to be able to contribute to drive change in the city. Together, we co-created a citizen sensing strategy. We decided that we needed to track noise in the city for a long period of time in order to assess when was this noise becoming unbearable, what was the source of the noise, at what time it was affecting people. We needed to prove the noise in the square was associated to late night drinking. We deployed 25 smart citizen kits, open source sensors in the balconies of the people living around the square. In this picture, you can see Joan and Remey, who very proudly have a sensor in their hands. They had a sensor outside in their balcony and a sensor inside, and they documented the type of windows they had because we wanted to understand the relationship between outside noise, the type of insulation that they have, and inside noise. For 6 weeks, we tracked noise with these 25 sensors every 5 seconds, and we created the largest data set of noise pollution in that area. We created a data observatory that allowed the community to take care of their sensors as if these sensors were commons. If you're not familiar with the commons, the idea is that the community owns and establishes the rules under which these sensors can be used. And the same happens with the data. You can see in this picture that some of the sensors are in red and others are in green. This is because at all times, citizens could decide when they wanted to stream data publicly or not. Imagine, if you have a sensor inside of your house, a noise sensor, this sensor might be recording data or signaling some of your behavior that is quite personal, and you don't want to stream this data in real time to everybody in the city. So at all times, they had the possibility to manage their sensor. Not only that, but these first 2 sensors are Centilo, which is the public infrastructure of sensors of Barcelona. We found that they had a sensor in the square, and we pulled the data from there. What did we find? Well, we did find that the situation of noise in this square was rather strange. Instead of going down towards the late afternoon, when people go back home after work in this square, noise goes up. And the way noise behaves clearly correlates with late night activity, or botellón, like we call it locally. So you can see the noise goes up, especially in the afternoon and towards the night. And if you look at what the loudest days are, it also correlates with that sort of use of the plaza, where people enjoy the weekend and get louder towards the weekend. We also track day by day the noise levels, including peak noises, which is what people really are concerned about because it wakes them up or it disrupts it causes stress and so on. And we managed to identify what the noise average was. The citizens felt, let's go back to this and do a very quick test. Does anybody know what the local legislation in Barcelona and in most European cities say about noise pollution at night? What is the level of decibels? You're smart city experts. I'm sure you know this. During the day. So you don't want to have more than 45 to 55, depends on the legislation, decibels at night. Now you look at this, and you clearly see, and you see the red dot, we're always above 60 towards 70, and peaks can reach 90 decibels sometimes. So this is a clear situation of noise pollution. So citizens went from having a perception of noise pollution to having evidence to demonstrate that there was a situation of noise pollution in the square. With the data, the conversation changed. And we started to see how citizens mapped their claims onto the data. They didn't just say, hey, it's noisy in the square. They said, it's 97 decibels. It is pretty loud. It's like a rocket by my bed. With this, we created, obviously, the citizens made it to the media, and the message got spread. But is data the solution to the problem? I know we all sell technologies and think that promise that data will solve the problem, but data will not solve the problem. The problem will solve through political will, through citizen pressure. So we decided to, instead of communicating a problem to the city council, we wanted to contribute solutions. So one day we took the square and we organized a citizen-led assembly. The idea was to come together as a collective, those who use the plaza and those who suffer the plaza, and the experts who are willing to contribute to co-create potential solutions to the problem, taking into consideration architectural features, urbanism, the economy of the plaza, the way we use the plaza, and so on. 17 of these recommendations were submitted to the city council, and look what happens. The first one was applied. 4 of them have been implemented by the local council. One of them is to clean the plaza, the time where the bars close, instead of at 4 p.m., but making the floor of the plaza wet, less people are interested in sitting there and drinking. Then they have added flower benches in an area of the city where a lot of people were congregate. By adding flower benches, you reduce the space available for groups, so groups get smaller, and therefore the aggregate noise is less. And they have also deployed a park for children, so that we can start to imagine different uses for the square. And the last thing that we heard is the implementation of 14 official sensors to measure how these implementations are having an effect on the problem of noise pollution. Like this, we ran 9 pilots across Europe. 3 of them we ran in Pristina, the capital of Kosovo, to address air quality. We managed to pass legislation that accepts the citizens have a right to access rigorous data on air pollution, for nuclear radiation in Maastricht, and others of noise pollution, which you can see here in Amsterdam, Maastricht, and other places. Now, before I finish, the question that I get asked all the time, and the reason why I wanted to share this with you is, how do you replicate this? How do you ensure, wow, that's not my fault. How do you ensure that if we run your processes, your protocols again, we will achieve change? And that's really hard to do. And also, let's be honest, citizen engagement is typically the less resourced activity in most public administrations and projects. We need to be able to run civic engagement programs with technology that empower people, but we need to reduce the cost of doing it. So what we decided to do was to document all our techniques, all the protocols and all the activities that we did in each phase of the engagement protocol, so that any of you, any group of citizens that is affected by environmental issues, any city council that wants to work with citizens can do this by appropriating all our tools. We documented all the tools and published them in this open source toolkit, which is under a Creative Commons license, and you can download for free. For example, and we also produced a documentary that shows you how each of these tools came together to produce the pilots. The documentary was presented in cinemas here. It's called Citizen Science Revolution. You can find it online as well. So here's our framework. These are the steps that you need to follow if you want to do something similar to what we did. They start with identifying matters of concern, co-creating technologies, collecting data, analyzing the data, and so on. In the toolkit, we show canvases that allow, for example, there are more than 25 tools, so obviously I'm just going to share a handful of those with you. But for example, you can see the commons mapping, which allows communities to come together and decide upon what they want to contribute. Some people have technical skills, other people have data visualization skills. A project of the kind needs to create opportunities for different citizens to contribute different types of skills. In the toolkit, you can also see how we use that method, how we design it, how long you need to use it for, and so on. Another thing that we created that I think is a huge contribution to open source IoT, it's an onboarding application. We realized that most people really struggle to set up sensor technologies. We get so obsessed with producing the sensor, and we don't think that Rosa or Maria, who are 60 years old, need to set up the sensor. So we created an open source onboarding application that runs you through the process of setting up a sensor, and I swear to God, anybody can do it, and it's also been documented. We created sensing strategies canvas for people to learn how to deploy sensors, which, as any of you work with IoT knows, it's really problematic, and sensing guides that allows people to document. So you need to document the data. You need to annotate the data so that the data makes sense when you analyze it. We produced open hardware for noise, for air quality, and for nuclear radiation. That's also documented in GitHub and can also be assembled and produced at Fab Labs, including their enclosures as well. We created data dashboards like the one I showed to you. It is very important to support people in making sense of data. The more and more we produce data, the more we need to infrastructure communities to do two things. The first one, analyze the data, make sense of it. The second one, to govern the data, to decide how they want to share their data, under which conditions, and to enable that through technology as well. We also have shared in the toolkit methods for co-creation of solutions to local issues. This is a canvas that we call the future newspaper that allows people to think from the future, imagine the change they want to achieve, and then backtrack to the present to come up with an idea that they can deploy. Interventions of the kind, ways of assessing this, and the toolkit also includes the case studies, 6 of the top case studies, and a manifesto so that we can really harness the potential of the Internet of Things to really empower people to change the places where they live in and to create a public good. Thank you very much.
Do you have any? Oh, I'm going to ask you to stay in case we have questions, which I don't think we have any in the app yet. Are there any questions in the room for Mara about the methods of approaching this, helping communities use data? Great. If you could come to one of the mics in the middle, please, that would be wonderful.
I can hear you. I'll repeat.
You talked, on the solutions side of the project that Barcelona you mentioned. You had a lot of solutions that would get the people out of the square. I mean, the ones that the people sitting there at night, making them less. Did you think about solutions where you would, tax additionally the people running the bars around, and then having that money go into renovation windows you mentioned? Do you give a think about that?
So I didn't come up with a solution. So my approach is typically to bring people together so they can co-create solutions. But obviously there is regulation in place that limits the noise a bus can do, so that exists. Now what happens in that square, like in many other squares, is that it is the aggregate noise of a given activity that causes the problem. So sometimes just by reducing the number of people, it's not kicking out people, everybody has a right to enjoy public space. And it's very important that people are still able to have fun at the square. But the situation was how do you reduce the concentration in certain areas where noise affects the buildings nearby? And how do you design a square for that? But I'm sure there are a number of other very creative solutions that could have been deployed as well.
Anyway, thanks. Great.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for one more, a second question. Anyone else? Oh, and we've gotten one in the app, so you guys are off the hook. So Mara, how can the IoT revolutionize the sustainability and efficiency of a city? That's a big question.
Well, this is revolutionize. I mean, address, probably. I wanted to address the problem of sustainability. And, well, we can see, I have many ideas on this, and I get really excited, but I only have a few minutes. So I think that you cannot solve what you don't measure. So the first thing the IoT can do for us is to help us measure the problems that we have. You need to understand what is the level of air quality, what is the level of noise pollution. To neglect the problem is to not measure it. And therefore, I'm very suspicious of solutions that are born out of the cabbage without real data on a diagnosis of what the problem is. So the first thing, I'm very, very much in favor of using the Internet of Things to collect data, to make assessments. And in terms of sustainability, I think that by making better use, by understanding certain processes in the city, like traffic, pollution, and so on, we can make decisions that can translate into good policy that can reduce environmental pollution and can increase sustainability in the city and so on. Like you can use IoT to control traffic, to reduce the congestion in certain areas. You can monitor pollution. You can help change with wayfinding applications that respond to real-time data. You can help people navigate in a city in a way that they produce less pollution, are less affected by pollution, and so on. So I think there's a lot of promise there. Now the key thing is, let's solve real problems. Let's address things that people are really concerned about. Let's not create ghost solutions just because we can and we have the blockchain and things like that.
That's a really great point. So one more question, because people are still voting for it, so thank you for using the app. What did you learn in designing the data dashboards for non-technical citizens? What can you share about that?
Oh, fantastic question. I wish I knew so much more. I learned that it is super complicated. I learned two key things. The first one is that data sense making is really problematic. That a lot of people, most people don't have the skills to make sense of data. And also, there's a huge opportunity for user experience people to come up with creative ways of helping people make sense of data. Comparisons are good, but can also be very problematic. For me, an interesting approach to data visualization is data that is actionable. Not just freaking people out with numbers that are like really scary, like your air quality is XX PM 2.5, and you don't know whether you should wear a mask, jump out of the window, or you're fine to go and run outside. Tell me what I can do with this air and what I shouldn't do. Help people make decisions based on the data. And the second thing the data dashboards taught me is that there is a massive need to infrastructure data governance protocols. There's so much that you can learn from just seeing data that reveals personal information. So we need to come together as a collective to create data licenses, to use smart contracts or any given technology that allows people to govern their data, to decide how this data can be shown, to whom, under which conditions, and for what purposes.
Great. Well, Mara, thank you very much again. Let's give her a
Thank you
quick
very
round
much.
of applause.
It's my pleasure. Cheers.
All right, so now we'll turn from the role that data plays in impacting cities to the IoT solutions themselves. And for that, I'm excited to introduce you to Paulo Ferreira, the VP of Smart Vertical Solutions and Smart Cities for Bosch. In that role, Paulo he leads a worldwide project in which one of the verticals is smart cities. He joined the company in 1992, so he has a wealth of experience to share with us from doing that. So without further ado, Paulo.
Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Are you going to disappear?
More and more people are moving into cities in the search for a better life, looking for jobs, for education, actually for higher standards of life. So if we see that, we expect that the population, the world population, will from now 7.5 billion increase to 9.8 billion year 2050. And that the concentration in cities will increase from now more than 50% up to 70% in cities. So did you do the math? What does this mean? That means that the population in cities will nearly doubling from now 3 billion to 6 billion by the year 2050. And the way it goes now, there is actually not much we can do about it. So what does this mean? Actually, what does this mean for cities? And more specific, what does it mean for your personal life? I would like to give you some hints how that will change our world. So nowadays, in average, every citizen like you and me living in a city consumes about 7,000 kilowatt hours a year. Since all the devices that we have are driven by electricity, like your mobile, like your PC, your laptop, so there is the increase of demand and the consumption of energy will be even increase rather than to decrease. Imagining by doubling actually the population of the world, that will be even more, or in cities, that will be even more. So what does this mean if you don't find a good way how to solve it? Regular blackouts, actually rotten food in supermarkets because you don't have any energy, airports stopping because you cannot start and land the planes, no Champions League matches on TV. Well, actually something that I would not like to imagine. Other things that I don't like to imagine is how to handle and continue handling with administration. So nowadays, I don't know if you are satisfied with the administration of your city, but if you have to extend your passport or get a new passport, and I just did it 2 weeks ago, at one side you can order your pizza online in your city, but you have to queue for more than 1 hour to get all the paperwork done to get on your passport out of it. So it will become more and more in terms of paperwork, because nowadays still 80% of all the work done in cities is still not digital. We just talked about a lot of air quality and how to measure it, and that is a good start, at least to be aware in terms of quality of air. If you see it on a worldwide base, and if you take cities like mega cities like Shanghai, we see that nowadays already 127 days the levels of pollution reach actually the limit of what is healthy for you to live in such a city. Now again, imagine increasing the number of population living in cities. That will be even worse, getting worse rather than better. If you double again the population in cities, so you will have also more waste. Also all these teeny cans around your corner smelling and getting all this pollution into the air. And sometimes even they don't show up to pick it up, so it even will get worse. If you take a look at it in terms also of security, not only your personal security, but also public buildings and private buildings, even if the correlations are not so easy, but if you can imagine if there are more people living there in cities, so crime rates tend then to go up and to get worse than they are going today. So, and I don't know how many of you have been coming by car today. Maybe you can just raise your hand. Somebody standing in the queue this morning having traffic? Yes? So nowadays, you're staying already in traffic more than 40 hours a year. So imagine that more cars on the road with the current infrastructure will get even worse rather than better again. And you will not only stand in queues or standing in traffic in your car, but you have to queue more. You have to wait more for things people are actually take time to get the things that you have done. If it is an espresso, churros, or ever in the bakery in the morning when you want to get your bread. So the question is actually, don't you have better things to do with your time than to wait and to stay there? Well, actually I do. And I would prefer to spend my time in a more meaningful way. And there are good ways how to generate this, because once we have to take it for granted that urbanization is coming and getting more and more into the world, in our world, you don't have to take all these negative effects and all these terrible stories that I was just telling, because there are solutions already for it. Now let's just imagine. Imagine that the city is taking all the resources that they have and organize this in a more effective way in terms of money, in terms of space, and also in terms of energy and sustainability.
We didn't see them in this room.
And use this, taking their citizens in mind and making sure that they are making the possible offer that is possible. So how could this look like? Just take the energy grid in your city. In the most of the cases, the grid is still organized like it used to be centuries ago. So critics says that even Thomas Edison could still handle this if he would come back in time, because the systematic, how it is working, it's still the same. But it don't have to be like that. You can change it and you can organize it in a more sustainable way, in a more effective way. So using sustainable energy, using storage, and using also the energy where you need it and how much you need it in the future. So in terms of e-governance, and this is one example coming from Estonia, they are actually promoting their e-governance in the way that they say you have only to show up for 3 things in our administration. When you get married, when you get divorced, and when you buy a house. Last week I was in Dubai and I even learned they have even one step further already. Sorry? Because they only need to show up whenever you get divorced and married. Your house you can bind and sign actually by a single signature. So let us see how long it takes till you still have to show up on your wedding. So we hope this is something that still stays, that you have to show up on that. And just imagine, why are trash cans not sending their data to the administration, just showing and telling you when they have to be actually emptied? And when you're talking trash cans, you can talk also about all the buildings and the public buildings that you have around the spaces. So why not getting there the IoT working and getting the right information so that whenever you need maintenance or something to be done, that you get the information to do it on time and not on a regular modus that is maybe not needed on that time. Parking your car. Is it annoying for you parking your car, especially when you go on the weekend to town and want to do your shopping? So statistics says that more than 30% of the traffic that you find then in cities on these peak times are actually looking for a parking place. But there is already a solution. In future, your car will be automatically parked and you will have no problem anymore with that. With this, you will reduce also the traffic on the streets, and on the other side also reduce the level of pollution that you will have in cities, because less driving, less pollutions also. So another question is, well, what are then the contribution that we can as a company do to it? Because there is a huge challenge for the companies, for the cities, no doubt. But on the other side, there are also chances combined with it. And why do we believe as Bosch that we can provide good solutions to it? Because on one side, we can connect the digital world with the physical parts of the city and also the physical parts of our products, bringing this match together. And we could add to a lot of these solutions that I was just showing to you. We have the knowledge, the technology, and also the products. By matching this together and connecting this together, then make sure that we can offer some of the solutions that I just showed to you before. We are concentrated mainly on 5 main areas. That's at one side, energy, security and safety, the mobility part, smart buildings, and also offering solutions for e-governance. So now you might say, well, that sounds a little bit like science fiction. That is still not happening. But some of these solutions are already implemented. Where? And I will tell you a story about a friend of mine that just moved to a new place. In his place now, when he's in the office, and before he goes home, he can, via app, actually start his oven, so that whenever he goes home, he comes home, the food is already finished. And if he don't want to do that, so if he just arrived home and don't feel like eating at home, he wants to go out, he will have an app. He have a community app on his mobile phone who tells him exactly the traffic situation, but also how to get from A to B in terms of traffic transport, getting in the right time of the buses so that you don't have to wait for this bus to come. Well, and when he goes out and have some drinks and make also some noise then in the city and wants to walk home instead of having a public transport or also his own car, he will be tracked by the video system that is implemented in his community with a guide you home functionality so that he's also feeling safe on the way to come home, that he have no problems in terms of security. He feels well because the grid and also the energy grid that is implemented in his community, it's a smart grid. So it's efficiency and it's a good combination between sustainable energy and also traditional energy, so that whenever that's made in a very effective way. And whenever he drives also his car, he have automated parking on it, so that he don't have to care how to put the car and how to get this to his home. Where is this place? Where is this miracle place? That's a place in San Francisco, at the San Francisco Bay. A project that we are working together with a real estate developer in San Francisco. The facility names 5 Point, and they are building up to 12,000 houses on this Bay Area, a beautiful area at the moment, and building up this is a smart community. So this is a start. It's not the whole city, it's a community where they are developing and implementing all these technologies. And we strongly believe that you have to start somewhere implementing this new technology centered on the user base, centered on people, making sure that we are providing solutions that they need, and then making sure that this is implemented and spread out over the cities. This is just an example of the projects that we are working at the moment. We are working in several cities in France and also in Germany, implementing this kind of technologies and making sure, developing these smart facilities. And we are always looking for new opportunities, new cities. So if you have been able to make you curious about our technologies and what we can provide in this area, please feel free to contact us. Please feel free to join us just around the corner, down the aisle, about 200 meters. We have a booth here, and we are more than happy then to discuss and to talk with you. By saying that, thank you very much. Are there some questions?
Yeah, let's see. Do we have any coming up for us? We have quite a few. So while they get the picture up, there's one that's got a pretty high ranking on the app. So I'm going to actually ask you the same question that we started off with Mara. How can IoT revolutionize sustainability and livability in cities?
Well, at the end, it's not only about technology. It's about what people need. So, and you can implement a lot of technology in a city, but if nobody is using it, you will not have no benefit coming out of it. So once we understand what kind of pain points these people living in your area, and it may be different from city to city, then you can adjust and implement this into the city and make sure that this is working. How can this revolutionize it? In a point of time, we have been dreaming about it and how to put all these things together, but it was too expensive. Now it's affordable. With all the sensors that you can put into a city, you can measure what kind, if it is air pollution, if it is noise, if it is whatever it is, you can measure. And then you can also take actions to make sure that you are changing it. By putting this on a digital base, you can easily scale it and much easier scale it all over the town.
Are there any questions in the audience? Anyone who wants to come up? Right. I have one more question about scalability that's coming
Sure.
through on the app as well. But how can cities ensure that the solutions they're implementing are both scalable, secure, and reliable?
Or can cities make sure that it's scalable? Well, out of our experiences that you have specific situations in specific cities that it's quite unique for this environment. And on the other side, you have certain applications that are actually scalable all over the place. So we believe that in terms of scalability, we have a kind of a ratio, and it depends from city to city and from application to application, something between 60 to 40, 80 to 20. So that means things that between 60 and 80% are scalable because it's nearly a similar application that you can send, that you can then apply in Madrid, in Barcelona, in San Francisco, in New York, or also in smaller cities. And 20%, 20 to 40%, it's then something that you have to adjust to the needs of such a city. How can you make sure that this is secure? Of course, you have to protect your data in a way that not everybody can access it. And nowadays, I think there are quite good technologies to do so. Some of them we have as well.
So I have one last question. I don't think I'm coming through at all. And if there's anyone in the room with a question, please come on up to the mic. But there's one last question on the app around affordability, right? Between your speech and Mara's, we looked at more than a dozen examples of where IoT solutions and sensors can be deployed in the city. How are cities going to pay for this?
That's a good question because normally cities don't like to pay for it. I think we all agree on that, and all of us that have discussions with cities knows that it's always a different discussion, or a difficult discussion, to find them the right budgets than to apply for it. And I think that together with the cities we have to find clever business models around it, not maybe to make sure that it fits inside of a budget of a city, and on the other side you can offer this benefit then also to the users. Is this an easy one? No. I think that's the most complicated question than we have, because the technical solution sometimes it's easy, but the question is then now how can it be sustainable, implemented in a way that you're generating value at one side for the user and for the city, but on the other side you can generate also a value stream coming out of it. They're good ideas, but it's not an easy one.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Paulo. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
So we've reached the point of our networking break. So please join us. There's space in the back, space right outside. But please come back and join us for our expert panel at 20 minutes after the hour. All right. It looks like we got almost everyone back, and given we're competing for free drinks outside, that's not too bad. All right. We'll be wrapping up this track with a really interesting panel of experts. And that panel will be led by Felix Priano, a telecommunications engineer and lead for smart cities for the Regions Group here in Madrid. He'll be joined by Mr. Juanjo Hierro, and I apologize for not getting the last names right, who is the CTO for Fiware Foundation, looking at the fast-growing open and agile smart cities technologies across Europe. We'll also be joined by Mr. Will Judge, Vice President for MasterCard, applying modern e-commerce and IoT technologies to digital transformation, specifically focusing most recently on mobility. Mr. Jacques Letzelter, who joins us from Signify, where he's Senior Vice President out of Eindhoven, which focuses on connected lighting, leveraging LED with the network and overall IoT sensor base. And then finally, Gemma Patel from Eurocat, who coordinates the Big Data Center of Excellence here in Barcelona. I'll turn things over now to Felix to lead the panel. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry. Okay. This is a special session, a panel session, which is dedicated to IoT. And first of all, I want to say thank you to this organization for being here. We love smart cities. We love this world. And it's very interesting to stay here. So let's go with the sequence, the agenda. In the first time, we have 4 excellent speakers. They are going to present for 8 minutes, a short presentation. Then we have a short debate around 15 minutes, and then we close the session with 5 minutes. The main question here today, the problem to solve here is how interconnected devices can will change the life in the city. So we need to make 2 phases or 2 steps to solve this question. Step number 1 is to hear the presentation of our experts. And step number 2, it will be the Q&A about this presentation and any other question. So to organize the panel, I prefer to see the point of view of the IoT world of this manner, you know? It's like 3 points of view today. Point number 1 is the platform, standards, API. So Juanjo Hierro is the person that is going to talk about this point of view. The second one is about the smart services. Here for this point of view, we have 2 different visions. One is from Mastercard. Thanks, Will, for staying here. And the other vision comes from Jack Leicester. Thank you for being here. And the last point of view comes from the information, the data, the big data. And Gemma is the person who is going to present some of these topics. So let's start with the presentation, Juanjo. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Let's see if they bring the slides that I wanted to use. Well, at this time of the day, you are probably very, have been here for a long time, so a bit bored and so on. So let's try to be a bit energetic, starting with a bit of disruptive perspective, because probably you are coming here waiting to hear a lot of things about IoT and so on. And the first message I want to bring is that IoT really doesn't matter that much when we are talking about the relevant standards for a smart city and the kind of vision that a smart city should put in place. Of course, IoT is about an enabler that will help to gather a lot of data about what's going on in the city. But what's going on in the city is not just what you can sense with IoT devices. It's plenty of information that is coming from many different sources, from IoT devices, of course, but from different systems, from the citizens themselves using their applications. And that is the main point that we have to bear in mind, where the need for standards has to be put in place. How I create this knowledge, this information repository about what's going on in my city right now. This is a transformation journey where cities have to go and gradually evolve by adopting different standards. The first kind of standards have to do with how to gather that information and being able to expose that in a common standard manner using standard APIs. Fiware is bringing there a response with an API that is quite commonly adopted by a growing number of cities around the world. The second aspect is about data models. You have to describe what's going on in the city using a common language. And this is, again, to emphasize the first concept I wanted to bring, kind of being provocative here, that this is not something so tied to IoT as such. We are talking about the traffic in the streets, the routes of buses, and all that kind of stuff. This might be information being captured by devices, but might be captured by many other different means. And what is important from a development perspective and for the kind of applications, the kind of smart services that we are going to talk about later is what is the information I need to manage? How is modeled? How I can get access to it with the right privilege, access control, and so on. These are the first two steps going forward in the creation of the relevant standards that will allow to create a sustainable market of solutions, a sustainable market where platform providers, smart service providers can invest with the vision that what they develop can be ported from one city to another. It will not be the last stages of the journey, because next stages have to do with how I can expose that data and how I can monetize part of this data. Why Fiware and what kind of contribution to this standardization process we are bringing from the Fiware initiative? Well, we are creating those standard APIs, the Fiware and GSI standard that allows to get this information in right time about what's going on in the city, being captured from IoT, and that means that Fiware, powered by Fiware platforms, are capable to translate from the different IoT protocols and languages that the IoT device support to this common language that applications can build on top. And this is a standard that is being adopted by more and more cities, but also organizations that are quite relevant when trying to push the right set of standards. Organizations like GSMA, like EXI, who have adopted what we have offered, or very relevantly, initiatives like the Connecting Europe facility in Europe, which has adopted Fiware technology as the glue, this integration technology that public administrations are recommended to adopt when they have to expose information about what's going on in real time, no matter if that information comes from devices or from different kind of systems. Because what is important is not how you capture that information, but how you expose that information. Organizations like the Forum, and as I said, a growing number of cities. The Open and Agile Smart Cities Initiative, for example, is an initiative that gathers together a network of more than 120 cities around the world, and all of those cities have identified Fiware technologies as the way to go, trying to create a common ground basic technologies for exposing data. This is the kind of architecture we envision. I don't have time, don't worry about that, to go into the details of this. I don't want to bore you. But for those who are interested in diving in this information, please go to our booth. We have this picture out there in one of the walls, and we are happy to explain in all the details how you can build a smart city reference architecture around this technology, a technology that is getting gradually adopted by more and more cities and by relevant organizations, bodies, standard organizations, or public administration initiatives. I want to conclude my intervention with a reference to a big announcement we made yesterday. The Fiware Foundation, together with TM Forum, one of the largest organizations bringing together recommendations for creation of digital services, have decided to join forces to create a program we call the Frontrunner Smart Cities Program. What is this program about? It's about putting together to collaborate cities that have decided to move into execution, that agree on this common vision, will embrace or have already embraced the technology we are advocating to for the exchange and publishing of data. And now they are going to work together in defining common information models, which are the ones that you need to really achieve full interoperability and portability of applications. 11 cities all around the world have already joined the initiative, cities like Vienna or Utrecht or Valencia, Santander, cities in Latin America like Montevideo have joined and now are part of this initiative. You want to learn more? Two events to consider. One is this, so please come to visit us and learn more about this. And second, the Fiware Summit that will take place in Malaga, 27th and 28th of November, where we will run the kickoff of this Frontrunner Smart Cities initiative. I think all less that, thank you. So happy to hear any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Juanjo. Next presentation is Will Judge from MasterCard. Will?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Do I press this to move my slide on, or? The slide will come in a minute. I'll open, however, with an observation. Boiled down to its essence, what is a city but a collection of human beings? Human beings have, for many thousands of years, clustered together in cities, and it's worth reflecting for a moment why that is. My belief, and I think the belief that underpins my company, is that people cluster in cities because it allows them to specialize and thrive and prosper through trade. And on the back of that, I would put to you that implicit is in the notion of a city, one of today's cities, or a future smart city, is the notion that its purpose really can be thought of as to enable the people within it to trade with each other. And that commerce, therefore, the action of trading, is absolutely essential to the functioning of a city. But we're in a world of things, aren't we? This is an Internet of Things session. What are these amazing things we're all getting? And increasingly all those things are connected. How might that change the way we trade with each other? And what that might mean for how you might go about building smart cities in the future. So I've only got one chart, and it's not nearly as good as the one we just saw. I dream one day of doing a chart like a reference architecture chart. Maybe one day my time will come, but not today. The things we want to talk about what the move into an IoT world might mean for commerce are really set out on this chart, and they come in three areas. And I'll just take the next 5 minutes to just touch upon the key themes in each of those areas. The first matter is, how do we transact with each other? We can go back in the history books, notes and coins, lots of problems there about theft and security and the dangers of carrying cash in large quantities. So today's world, in most advanced economies, using the credit or debit card that is familiar to you, probably in your wallet or in your purse right now, is the standard mechanism in which we trade with each other. But what changes from that transaction model in a world where we're surrounded by connected devices in the city? Well, actually quite a lot changes. And I actually think that the work that we are doing in the payments world and the other big actors in the payment space to move on from the world of the plastic card will enable you to stand up lots and lots of quite new and interesting models or mechanisms for trade in the smart cities that you go ahead and build. The days when the way to transact was to take your piece of plastic and to insert it into the device that the service provider or the merchant offered to you are really long gone. Frankly, the days in which you took the 16-digit number on the front of your piece of plastic and it entered into the browser are also long gone. The future of commerce is actually going to be shaped in the near term, over the next 3 to 5 years, by an explosion of credentials. And when I say an explosion of credentials, what I mean is that the roughly 3 to 5 billion payment credentials in the pockets of human beings in the world today will grow to more than 20 billion over the next 5 years or so. Now you might think, what are the banks doing? Are they really going to issue 4 times as many credit cards to everybody from the richest to the poorest in the world? The answer is no. What is actually happening is that the banks who issue credentials to you as payers are creating systems whereby they can create many virtual tokens, each related to your credential, and distribute them into the connected devices that you possess as a consumer and a payer. So in the future, you might have a preferred payment card from a preferred bank, but that card will be reflected and manifested several times in the things that you have in your life and that are connected. So when I say things, I mean your car, your watch, maybe your favorite piece of jewelry. These are all things in which a token can be deposited into to transact on your behalf, drawing off the underlying account or credit card that you're so familiar with today. Why is this important? The first thing to say is that these tokens, because they're driven primarily by software and they exist in the cloud, they are all highly controllable and configurable. You'll be able to define for each one where you can use it, when, for what type of purpose. And the controls that allow you to manage that and change that over time will be provided with you as part of the future proposition that your bank gives to you as a payer. In some cases, you would actually choose to deposit these tokens with the merchants that you want to pay. So to give you an example of that today, in the United States, Netflix now allows MasterCard holders to lodge with them a controllable token for their MasterCard. So that you'll never, ever again suffer the experience whereby you've lodged a card on file to pay your monthly subscription to Netflix, the thing expires, the service stops, you have to go back and dig out your account number, try to remember your Netflix password. With new systems where merchants are taking tokens representing payment cards, all these scenarios can be dealt with and passed on. So a world of many intelligent software-based controllable tokens is what awaits us on the consumer side. These tokens will be backed by strong authentication. We're investing lots and lots and lots of money in moving on beyond passwords for authentication and adopting a full range of biometric technologies to secure the credentials wherever they might be. And these credentials, because they're going to be in connected devices, they will be activated in the background. So to give you an example, if you have associated credential with your car and you drive your car into the gas station, the credential may automatically activate itself using geolocation to allow purchases of fuel, but when you drive away, deactivates itself, can't be used. The last thing to reflect upon in terms of tokens is that this will, we believe, massively reduce everybody's exposure to data breaches. If you steal a token that's provisioned for Netflix, it is unusable because you won't be using it with Netflix. So great progress on that side and a proliferation of commerce-capable connected devices on the consumer side. For the merchant side, the people you're paying, whether it's your favorite coffee shop, whether it's the city transportation network, whoever it might be, lots of different ways to interact with these tokens. It is not just about tapping a contactless card or phone to enter a metro system. Your tokens can be detected when they enter a geofence. Your tokens can be connected with Bluetooth trackers to pick up their proximity when you're within a few meters of them. There are many different forms for this, and these enable many new business models. So we've done some interesting work with WeWork in San Francisco, enabling people to walk into the facility and registering that on a single tap on the WeWork app. And then as they walk through the facility through the day, whether it's into the kitchen area or into a meeting room or into a work cubicle, paying for access to those facilities on a by-second basis and only paying for what the individual consumes. We can see lots and lots of use cases where we will transform the mode of interaction with the consumer from plastic cards or apps onto voice. I was talking to an interesting company today who are announcing the launch of booking parking for your next trip with Alexa on Amazon. So a multitude of possibilities open for you building new cities to transact with the people in them using these configurable tokens. And finally, just to touch on new data flows. Obviously, this activity and the transactions within it are a rich and deep data resource for people trying to understand what is going on, for whatever purpose that might be. We're all familiar that merchants analyze transaction data in their stores to figure out how to tailor and improve their offerings. But equally, in the future, cities might well be interested in looking at the aggregate volumes of transactions to get in real time or near real time a picture of what's going on. How much did transactions last Friday when it was warm and sunny differ from the prior one when it was cold and rainy? Which merchants won and which merchants lost on that? If there was a labor force strike and the metro system in your city is closed down, what was the actual dollar or pound cost of that event to the merchants who choose to transact in the city? And how would you quantify that as a cost to the city as a whole? Would that help or hinder the mayor in having a negotiation with unions about how can we make sure that doesn't happen next time? The potentials for marshalling transaction data and making it available with suitable controls of aggregation and anonymity and consumer consent for the purposes of city administration are many and varied. And as MasterCard, we're determined to bring all this to the business of building future cities in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Will, for this excellent presentation. Now we are going to continue with Jax from
Yes.
Signify,
Good evening.
formerly Philips Lighting. Philips
I
Lighting.
will
or-
introduce myself. Actually, I work in a different company. It's a company that can position your car in the canopy of this, say, fuel station you mentioned, and will give you the perfect position and tells you without any safety breach that it's my car, it's there, you can open the token.
Yes.
Its company is named Signify. What we do at Signify is we commercialize lighting, luminaires, also solutions like systems and services. We are known as Philips Lighting from the past, but we changed our name for several reasons. And we commercialize the lighting brand, but also we introduced this year a brand called Interact. And actually we can do with lighting lots of things that the one you just gave me a token
Pay per
for.
light, pay per minute light, why not?
We also generate, we are part of these companies that are reinventing themselves. Can I have my slides? And change business models in our domain. And we also generate more data flow that we want to get paid for. Maybe we can discuss in the panel. Anyway, when I'm ready. So at Signify, we have we want to compete with my predecessors about the type of chart we will display. I'll do that. Oh no, that's too much. You'll see it. This is a chart that you can project you to. It's a concept of a city. You live in cities. I assume that you have a home there. You already know your own experiences with lighting if you have purchased and utilized connected lighting at home. If you have a TV that extends the experience you have by watching the TV on the walls, by projecting a bit of light that is of a similar color than your movie, we can now do something similar inside a city between an arena where a game is happening and the bridge next door to actually expand what's happening in the arena to people who just use the city to drive back home or into your home when you sit there and enjoy your family. At Signify, we perform that by interconnecting luminaires, pixels, together. When we put these interconnected devices on a bridge, we can actually push a show, it's video, it's like a TV, on this bridge. We change one experience, right? We're not so used to seeing that, but it's very similar to what you can observe if you go to a shopping mall in a big facade. It's also, it's big screens, but it can also be lighting that actually gives you a video. And our technology is deployed there on private buildings, on facades, to actually change experiences. But when you link that subsystem with, for instance, a subsystem that is in the arena, you can actually have two systems interconnected and create a very different experience. We believe that this beautification aspect of lighting into cities does change the experiences of citizens, but also visitors. It attracts traffic from visitors to the cities, and it really changes how people consume the city itself. Let me take another example. I now need to go a bit into the domain of the street down there, where you see pedestrians crossing the roads. It's known to you that when presence is detected in your office, maybe lighting goes up, and when you leave the office, lighting goes down. That's also available for many years into a smart city. However, it's not deployed very much because of the lighting technology did not really suffer very much the detection and then the action on the lighting. We can do that now when cities turn to LED, so LED lighting, to implement strategies of less CO2 emissions, so strategies to reduce their operational expenses on the electricity bill. They go to LED. Once the LED is there, you can actually add sensors to the lighting infrastructure for the sake of managing this lighting infrastructure, the need. Pedestrian crosses the street, lighting can go up. Traffic goes a bit more dense in the evening, lighting can go up. You have an incident somewhere, you want cars to go where light is, you dim the light down where there is a no-go, and you dim the light up where they go. Lighting is used, it's not a language as such, but we react to what lighting tells us indirectly. We really go, we look where lighting is, we don't look where there's no lighting. So we utilize, by connected lighting to sensors, but also to other systems, we change the experiences again of the citizens in a city. I want to add another example. In the middle of the picture, you have a plaza.
Thank you.
Lighting is usually very useful there to create an ambience. Mayors love to create areas in the cities where people like to gather in the evening, have conversations, extend their evenings, etc. And lighting plays an important role to put emphasis on some monuments, but also to create that cozy atmosphere. Now, what happens if you create an event in the city and you want your city to participate to the whole event? Right? Create a show in your city. You can do that with connected lighting. You do it by interconnecting your plaza with your bridge, with possibly the facades of all the buildings that exist out there. It's private investment, it's not public investment. The city cannot touch that, but you can discuss with the other owners and actually create a new experience as well. This is what lighting plays into the field of connected devices by attaching some luminaires together, or one big system with another big system. I'll finish with another example. Things happen in cities, right? There are safe places, people work hard so that they remain safe, but incidents happen. Maybe car collide, maybe gunshots exist. So there is possibilities now to deploy sensors all across the cities. It can be with your lighting infrastructure, it can be standalone sensors, doesn't matter. Much of the fact is that you can detect incidents. Who is interested in incidents detection? Police, maybe other services of cities, and they sometimes need to actually orient traffic or to communicate some things within the citizens. They can do that by, within the police control room, you can actually act on lighting just when you received an event. I could continue the use case of the examples of what you can do once you have lighting connected, but that's what we do at Signify. We deploy infrastructure that customers want with any kind of connectivity in any area of the city, at home, on smart buildings, on smart streets, on parks and plaza, to actually change the experiences that customers have there. Now I'll compete differently with a chart. Smart cities, for us, when we come here, it's also to explain a bit our vision. We'll hopefully discuss that in the panel a bit. But we believe that smart cities, at least for the sake of lighting, is very much about why you want to do that on the right side of the chart. It's to create citizens and visitors experiences, and that has to do with tangible use cases. A use case is something technical, but that have benefits for the citizen itself. It can be, for instance, in engaging with the city, right? When you have the event that I spoke about during a football match in an arena, how does the mayor react to the possibility he has today to measure the engagement level of his citizens before the match and after the match and within the match with his city? If you have that information, you can think your cities a bit differently. You can start planning differently. You can change some strategies. This is possible with social networks, but it's also possible with technologies that interlink social networks with lighting. If you want to know more about that, find us in the event. We'll explain what we do and where we do it already today. Another aspect is the skyline. Lighting is a big landmark, or used as a big landmark in cities, and the skyline is something that you want to change. How do you change that if private buildings actually have invested in their lighting, they manage that the way they want, and a certain event happens in the city that's decided by the community, and all the skyline needs to contribute to propagating the event to all the visitors. You can do that by interconnecting the systems that are in the private buildings with the city. Do you need to actually do technology to do that? No, you don't. Is it easy to do? Yes, it is. So I want to expand a bit that interconnecting systems is also beyond lighting, beyond illumination. We believe that it's very much it's important, and I think it's recognized in this room, that no provider of any technology, be it lighting, be it waste management, be it others, can do this on its own. We believe that it's important that all the technologies are selected and deployed with Internet of Things readiness, so that it can be bridged and stitched together at the city's information system. Some people speak a lot about the IoT platform of this technology that is the solution for smart city. We believe in something else. We believe that smart cities will actually exist because different platforms have been stitched together to create use cases that are useful to our customers. I'm going to stop here because I'm out of time, and I want to join the panel again.
Thanks. Thank you. So now we are going to the third point of view, the last one, about the information, big data. Gemma?
Okay, thanks so much. I'm the last one, so I will try to explain you some data, but not into a boring way. I will try to explain how we, as the Center of Excellence of Big Data placed in Barcelona, we work from data in order to bring in the value of data. And I will explain them as by an example that we have finished almost 2 years ago, where we apply Internet of Things, different sources of data in a real use case placed on Barcelona, near at the surroundings of the Sagrada Familia. The background of the project was placed of one of the main, Barcelona is one of the main first tourist destinations in Europe, and almost more than 80% of the citizens of Barcelona consider tourism is the economic engine for the city. So this project is focused on tackling these following challenges: better understanding of visitors' profiles, their interests, their roots, origin, destinations, they stay, where they spend money, maybe also. So also the new opportunities of smart urban management, and engage the management of public infrastructure and transport public services. Nowadays, we are working on several projects with data in order to know the matrix of the origin and the destination of the mobility patterns of the city. So big data is a powerful tool to help tourist management and also the city management. In that case, the initiative analyzed the concentrations, profiles, behavior, and mobility flows. It's focused at a street level in an area of high tourist concentration. In that case, Sagrada Familia. We use a mix of technology, so we have special sensors from one point. Also, we have the data of the telecom of the operator, and also we have the data of the Wi-Fi and other IoT devices. So we mix all the sources of data, several amount of data, because we want to have several data, and we want to play algorithms, to have a machine learning system to try to predict what is going to happen or what happens, some patterns into this area, Sagrada Familia, a place where a lot of people. So that's what we do, and we manage and optimize mobility flows and highly visited area, in that case, in that project. Also, with the macro level study, we have different, also another type of data, open data from the Smart City of Barcelona and the City Council, and also we have the data of the located antennas of the telecom operation to triangularize several data in order to we have more than 30 million movements in that project. So that's the engine of the motor, the engine of the data collection. That's the part of my presentation. So here we have placed the main areas of Barcelona and what is happening in the city. We have 3 types of visitors: the people who are tourists, the people who are commuters, and the nightlife visitor, that usually is the people who live in the city. And we see the patterns of movement of each of them. And also we have during the type of the evolution of the day, we have the mobility flows between the city of the Barcelona district. So we have a huge amount of people that are coming to Barcelona from the port, from the harbor, the airport, that's the red point, and then we move, these people move to the other part of the city and during the day, and that's a different point of what's happening at night, where there's not flow movement. So that's an amount of people. And then we have, in that case, we have one of the source of the data was the mobile phone data, because it's very useful for us to measure and detect concentration of people and quantify people in an areas of interest. And also we complement demographic and tourist information of TimeNet with surveys, and that allow us to the definition of mobility flows between the districts of the city. And also the geographical scope is reduced. We need to develop another IoT elements to define microanalysis at a street level, because here we talk about what's happening near the streets of Sagrada Familia. So we place name Wi-Fi sensors, we put several cameras, and also we have all the mobility flows of what people is doing around the Sagrada Familia project. So that's what we can do with data collection. Then the application of these technologies of clustering techniques on the data showed the identification of 3 new areas of concentration people when we focus on that neighborhood. And the main visitors of Sagrada Familia. So we have peak hours from 10 to 12. Also Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, we have similar patterns. And we have Mondays that have more variability in visitors, and same input and output behavior for each entry of the underground. So that gives the city council information about where to place the señalectic of the underground, where to put the main buses of the tourists. So this gives them several data to organize better a part of the city with a lot of visitors. So that's one of the projects where we apply, and we can have we have visit length duration only of an average of 10 minutes. The tourist period condition was less than 7 days. And the core is that we have one action in a core area. So we have several among data in real time. And that's what we have done with the areas. And we can say that the 50% of the visitors of Sagrada Familia spend less than 40 minutes in the Sagrada Manilits, and 20% less than 20 minutes. So that's also give the City Council a great hook of information. So we have with the data, we can have the mobility, what's happening, also the profile, the identification of locals, the commuters, the tourists, the night leisure, the country of origin, the gender and age, and also we can analyze the behavior, the visit of length, the hourly distribution, and daily distribution. So nowadays, this gives us knowledge, urban management, optimization, tailoring, excellence, and loyalty. We have applied this in that case in a tourist concentration place like Sagrada Familia, but nowadays we apply data in another place of a smart city in order to do a smart city and also to improve our lives. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gemma. Now, well, excellent, because we have all the vision from the platform to the data passing through the services. And now we are going to the second round of this session, this panel, with the Q&A. So I prepared, oh, I'm sorry, I need the...
You have the clicker?
The mouse for... Thank you. Thanks. So for this second round, I have 3 or 4 questions in blocks. You can see here a question about standards, measure, use of IoT, and the last one, security. So let's go with the first question. It's an open question for every of our experts. And we are looking for what's the dependence of standards that the city should bear in mind to build a good model now. So,
yeah, if you allow me to take that question, I think I already mentioned somehow the different standards that are going to be cornerstone in the different stage of evolution of a city. But I also want to refer to the presentation that Jack's made, because we very much agree that in looking into a vision of implementing a smart cities is this system of systems vision what really matters. I mean, the key aspects about standardization are not that much in the lower level IoT, because there will be a world of IoT protocols of many kinds, each of them very well suited to particular purposes. But you need to really come with the standards where that all integration of data comes. And then these are the layer where these systems are integrated, where you have to put focus on standardization regarding APIs, but also common information models. I think these 2 particular aspects.
We certainly resonate with that very much. Maybe I could add that at the API level, it's not going to be possible to standardize across verticals, because the verticals have nothing much to do together, right? So if you want to standardize a data model, how to represent waste management or containers versus light points, what do you want to standardize? However, you must be able to bridge things together. So there are some ways of doing things, and we said that within the world of IoT, there is certain ways of doing things, a certain type of APIs to create, a certain type of abstraction to bring to the software developers that they understand without having to understand the vertical, the vertical being lighting in our case, too deeply. Because you can and you will get the benefits for users without understanding deeply one of the verticals. So it's not really a direct answer to the standard, but a lot of effort in standardization would result into non-existence of smart cities for years.
okay, thanks.
I'd say on this subject that the payments industry has always been driven by standardization, and we all participate in global open standards bodies defining transactions and the data formats for them. The body that manages all that is called EMBCO. All its documents are open and publicly available, and it's EMBCO specifications that are the foundation for the tokenization model for IoT transactions that I outlined.
Okay, thank you. We are going to pass to the next question. It's about the measuring. We think the measure in a smart city in general is important, because we, in a lot of occasions, we work in many projects with a lot of investment money. But what is the real return of this project? How can we measure the results? In the IoT world, practically it's the same. It's important to get a result. So, of your organization, can you give us some example of this impact or something?
Should I start? Yeah. So our customers first, before talking about ourselves, right? Essentially, when it comes, if I stay within smart cities, it's essentially measuring the return or the payback on LED investment. The IoT part is not really cared so much about, right? So the business case of going from the traditional lighting we know to LED that reduces energy costs, there is a case for business to invest into lighting and in connected lighting. That's how they measure, okay, return on investment. If we look at our own measurement, we really believe that with IoT, with connected lighting, we can bring new value spaces and we'll unveil them to customers. But so far we count on ourselves the success in terms of number of light points, of number of installations that are sold connected. Analysts feed us back with data points. For instance, around the world in cities we have 320 million light points that serve the purpose of illuminating roads. Out of that, 3% is connected only today. It gives you an idea of where we go. And the penetration rate and the growth penetration rate is much higher. But that's ways we measure.
I think for our MasterCard, we live on the numbers you would expect. We see number of transactions, value of transactions, all this stuff. So we can measure the extent to which IoT systems are used to facilitate our transactions that way. But I think the measures that interest us are the more the ones that give us a clue that we're enabling new business models and new models to transact that couldn't be done the old way. One particular example that springs to mind for me right now is a project we're doing called Paygo, which is in sub-Saharan Africa, where we are using some of the approaches we use to enable pay-by-minute lighting for the very, very least connected and least affluent populations in the world. These are people who don't have the kind of income to sustain even the most basic conventional electricity connection, but there are telecoms companies that are willing to offer standalone, solar-charged, pay-per-minute lighting for the most unconnected households we know of in the world. And that kind of project is interesting. It's an IoT-led approach, but these are services that would not otherwise have been delivered to consumers, to communities that really do need them. And so I think those are the kind of measures that we take a great interest in.
Okay, thanks.
If you allow me to elaborate a bit on this last perspective, I think this has to do a lot with transforming the city into a platform, which is a key concept. Not only a platform for allowing third parties to develop applications based on data that the city may export, but also recognizing the fact that the city does not own or has all the data that describe what's going on. So you have to create the incentives for third parties to also share their data, because they will be able to monetize that data or bring innovative business models, and the city could actually deliver, together with our technology partners, the infrastructure, the platform that allows this to happen.
And I will only add also that we can take into account the citizen as a sensor also. Is another vision that complements the different IoT of the city.
Okay, thank you. Let's go with another question. I promise no more. This is about the use of the IoT. We heard this afternoon some real projects, but this question is about the real changes. It's like you have a city, model A, and you transform the city to model B. Which kind of project can you explain here about this real change in the city?
In that case, for example, we have explained a project based on Sagrada Familia, but nowadays we are working on other areas of the city, not only from Barcelona, in order to detect unexpected concentration of people and also to predict analysis of mobility flow. So that produce a real change in the city, because you can anticipate sometimes what is going to happen, and that's a new scenario and a new area of governance of the cities.
Okay. Okay, let's go with the last one. About security. Cyber security is a trend in the world. So what's about the biggest risk in this IoT topic?
Well, I touched on it in my remarks. I think the danger of breaches in these systems and the unauthorized acquisition of information flowing through them is something we spend an enormous amount of time worrying about. Employ multiple strategies to address, whether that's strong authentication, that the transactor is entitled to make a transaction. It's about minimizing the footprint of valuable information in the system using all sorts of strategies. and it's constantly trying to stay ahead of the threat in terms of using best-in-class cryptography and other strategies to secure the information flowing through these networks.
Okay. So I don't want to finish the panel with the opinion of the audience, the questions. So, any question?
Yeah, I have a question. We see in all the different industries that you represent, there's a lot of, let's say, advancements, and also the industry advances very fast. But also, when we're here in Barcelona on the Smart City Convention, how do you see that progress with, let's say, the customers that we service, and how fast they can adopt some of these technologies that we're able to develop very fast? And how do you see that actually when you talk to municipal customers or governments in your different industries?
I'll have a go at that. To start with, we have projects going on using these kind of approaches with both public and private actors in hundreds of cities around the world. But I think I would just highlight one observation I make that applies in most of those cases, which is that on the industry side, we all fall into the trap too often of using our own jargon. And what I try to do is to always try to bear in mind that the counterparty, the person you're talking to, isn't probably a payment specialist. Even if they are a payment specialist in some of the bigger cities, they haven't been in the flow of our discussions about our product roadmap and what is possible and when it will be possible. So I always try to invest as much time as I can in translating what I'm saying into the English language and making sure that the counterparty can cut through my jargon and understand the costs and the benefits to them as a necessary precursor to getting their consent to proceed with an investment.
Any other question? No?
And I will interrupt because we are at the end of our time. So first, please join me in thanking our panel. And then I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. I know I, for one, am actually leaving this session more optimistic about the impact that IoT solutions can have, and frankly, a little bit more convinced that there are really good companies and cities and partners working on some of the challenges that are slowing IoT down in making our cities more livable. So hopefully you too are taking some lessons learned with you, and have a very good evening. Thank you.
Thanks.